Alright, goodies everybody, my name is Ed Vine, and welcome to this video on the best cards to craft in Gwent. Now, this is not a tier list, and we're mostly going to focus on the best cards to craft for new players with a smaller collection. So before we start, here's a quick tip about crafting priorities. So as I said in a previous video, the rarity and the power of a card is not always proportional, which means gold cards can be epic. And also, the crafting cost of a card depends solely on its rarity and not the color of the card. So it doesn't matter if it's silver or gold, what matters is the rarity. So as a result, it's much better to craft 4 epic cards rather than 1 legendary, and it's much more likely to help you, especially in the beginning, to improve your decks, and you're going to feel much better results much faster. So I'm going to go through the list faction by faction, starting with neutral cards because they are the most important, especially in the beginning, because you can play them in all 5 factions. If you're only interested in a few factions, feel free to refer to the timestamps on the screen. So from now on, all the cards with big images are going to be the best cards to craft per faction and per rarity, based on my opinion, and smaller cards are going to be solid contenders. They're going to be cards to consider crafting if you're aiming to main a particular faction or a particular deck, or cards that you should consider keeping if you can get them from kegs. So starting with neutrals, I still recommend to craft Yennefer the Conjurer. So despite the strength nerf, her effect is still very strong and can win you many games. She is vulnerable to the Maritime Shackles, but she cannot be killed by other gold units anymore. So she's a very safe card to play, and she's a card that you can include into pretty much anything, any deck, and that makes her extremely valuable, especially when you don't have 4 gold cards per deck yet. Try to play her early in the round to get maximum value, and then she's going to yield pretty good results. Unfortunately, since the Witches got nerfed, she's the only epic card that I can fully recommend as far as neutrals go. So this brings us to a legendary card, Geralt Igni, which is also another card that can fit into any deck. So Geralt Igni has almost always been a top tier card, and it cannot really hurt you to run it. I consider it to be a must-have in your collection, especially in metas with big units, such as the one we're currently in. So these two are not only the best couple, they are also the best neutral cards to craft for a new player. Now here are some honorable mentions, starting with Triss Merigold. I think Triss is a good card if you don't have a lot of gold cards and legendaries, but you still want to play all factions. She gives you consistency and reliability with a solid 12 value. And she can kill cards like Lubberkin, Axemen in round 1, Grave Hag, Hawker Smugglers for example. She's a very solid and consistent card, she's never really bad. There might be other priorities in terms of crafting, but if you really don't want to main a faction but you want to get a gold card, I think she's a solid contender, and I think she's definitely a card that you should keep from early kegs that you can open. Next on the list is Okvist. I think Okvist is an amazing card, and one of the 2 neutral cards that can provide you with card advantage, the second one being Ciri. Okvist fits into a large amount of decks, however it is still vulnerable to Thunder, Yorvith or Lux, and so on. It's also a silver card, and in my opinion, crafting gold cards might be a better idea early on, since you're going to get to 6 silver cards rather fast, but getting to 4 gold cards is a little slower. Last but not least is King of Beggars. He gives you more reliability, especially in decks that play around low strength units, like Priestess of Freya, Iris, Grave Hag, or even Elven Mercenaries in some cases. He's also an amazing deck thinner and a good target to decoy or resurrect, since his effect is so strong. So that's gonna do it for neutral cards. As a quick reminder, avoid crafting Ciri and Decoy because they are fixed rewards for all players, and you're gonna get them at level 18 and 20. Now, next on the list is NR, which is a faction with amazing epic cards, and the first NR card to craft is probably Shani. Shani is one of the best gold cards of the faction, and she's the best medic in the game. She's always useful, she has good synergy with a lot of cards like Priscilla, King of Beggars and so on, and she has the ability to protect key cards by turning them to gold. For example, Demoted Baron, Dandelion, Margarita cards you're trying to protect and keep on the board, and yeah, very solid card. Next up is Priscilla. Priscilla has always been one of the best silvers of the faction because she gives you a lot of flexibility and she thins the deck. She can also be resurrected and is a good decoy target. Nennekin is number 3. She's an amazing medic. She allows you to choose any silver or bronze unit and resurrect it. She's just like Shani, except that the resurrected unit is not going to be turned into gold. And this can actually be good in some cases. For example, if you want to use a Reaver Scout on the resurrected unit, or if you plan to resurrect a spy and you don't want to make it invulnerable or gold. So I would suggest crafting her after Priscilla because Priscilla is such a good resurrection target, and having Priscilla gives Neneke more value. So the last on the list is the only featured legendary of the faction, Bloody Baron. This card has a huge potential with the Lubberkin, however the Lubberkin is pretty easy to counter. So it's still a card that demands a response from your opponent and it puts a lot of pressure on him. If your opponent doesn't have a removal or a lock, then it's going to generate you insane value if you play it early on the round. Sometimes, even though rarely, Botchling can also be a good card. Galaga is another faction with incredible epic cards. Satgrifa is an easy number 1, she fits into every deck and is probably the safest craft in the entire faction. She's the best Skellige medic and she can resurrect silver cards. Number 2 is Wild Boar of the Sea. It's a very flexible, low-risk card with synergies with wounding decks, and it can help you align units for a Scorch or protect your own from Scorch or Igni by staggering them. For only 200 scraps, it's a card that's going to give you a lot of value and that's going to help you get a head start when you're picking up Skellige. Bernabran is simply the best spy of the faction. She has synergy with discard decks, gives you card advantage. It's an amazing card, especially since you can choose from 2 cards face up, which is huge. And yeah, I think it's one of the best cards of the faction. Donar Anhindar is pretty much the same thing as Berna. It's a very similar card. He gives you card advantage and thinning, even though he's a little worse than Berna. Skellige is the only faction that has 2 spies, so definitely take advantage of this. Now, please remember this is not a tier list. I think Berna is one of the best cards of Skellige, but here I'm just talking about crafting priorities for new players, and this is based on my personal experience. So I'm going to say something that applies to pretty much all the spies of the game except for Avalach. I think spies are extremely strong, they're very, very good cards, especially when you need to win card advantage, but I don't think they're the best cards to craft first. If you're a very new player, I think spies are going to do you more harm than good, simply because deck thinning and drawing cards are not very strong mechanics if you don't have good cards to draw. In addition to that, the power you give your opponent has to be compensated by the power of the cards you draw and the card advantage that you can get. If it doesn't, then spies have much less value. So definitely craft spies, they're generally must-have, but maybe wait a little to craft more silver and gold cards before crafting spies. Now here's another easy one. Coral is probably the best gold and legendary card in Skellige. She's one of my personal favorites since there is no risk running her. She has a huge potential value, great flexibility because you can choose what weather effect you want to apply, and she fits into pretty much all decks. So she's a no-brainer. If you want to play Skellige, if you want to spend 800 on a Skellige card, then she is the go-to choice. Now about Scoia'tael. I think new Scoia'tael players need to invest in a new leader, which is probably going to be Bruvahug. Bruvahug is probably the most reliable leader of the faction. He allows you to play key cards at any point of the game. For example, you can fish for a very important Scorch, Aeromancy, Operator, or Yavin when you need them the most. He also enables decks built around specific silver cards like Elias, Moran, and so on. I would suggest crafting him once you have solid silver cards, as this will make him much better, and I definitely think that as a new player you need another leader than Francesca. Next up is Yavin. Yavin is the only spy of the faction and he is a must-have. He's going to be auto-include in most decks because card advantage is a trait of the faction, I guess. But just like I said, maybe craft other cards before crafting him. He's going to get a little bit more value. You can also use him sometimes. The damage can be useful because you can use them to set up Scorches and Igni, which is always nice. The last epic card of the list is going to be Toroviel. I think Toroviel is not completely broken. I just think she's an excellent card for new players for many reasons. First, she teaches you how to play with ambushes, and most importantly, she teaches you how to think ahead and calculate points. She makes you think about positioning, mind games, and also about playing with forcing your opponent to pass or play cards. I think you're going to learn a lot from playing this card, and she's also going to grab you a few nice wins by surprising new players who are not used to play around her. Now about Legendaries, Eglace is by far the best gold of the faction. She's extremely versatile and she gives you way too much flexibility not to play her. She's auto-include in most SD decks, so that makes her a must-have and must-craft if you want to play Scoia'tael. Saskia is a very solid number 2. She is a huge value card, especially in swarm decks with a lot of units. She doesn't give you the utility that Eglace provides, but she's definitely one of the best raw value cards of the game. Okay, so the third card might surprise a few people, it's Jorvit. Despite the popular opinion that this card was killed with the nerf, I still think he is reliable. I think he provides you with additional control, up to 13 raw value plus the value of the card you deny. He kills bigger units like a Vran Warrior, Arrakis Behemoth, and most importantly, Ogfist. I think he's a very solid and reliable card. If you can get him from a keg, I suggest to consider keeping him depending on what you have. It's a card you don't see often, but it's definitely not a bad card. I just think the reason why he's not played that much is because he's not one of the 4 best cards for the faction. He might be number 5, 6, but he's still very solid. Now, talking about monsters in general, I think the Crones are the best crafts because they're going to be useful in any deck. Also, if you're a new player, I think crafting 3 silver cards is going to be very useful because you're going to be able to use 3 very solid silver cards in all your decks. Even in weather decks, you can run the Crones. They're really strong, they provide you with a very, very high tempo, they're a good opener, and they're very reliable. If you want to play weather monster, then I think Caier is one of the first cards to craft. Caier provides you with huge value in weather decks, he has good synergy with Nithral, and he is a must craft if you want to play weather. Next up is Woodland Spirit. I think he is only good if you run Foglets and Ancient Foglets, but then if you do, it's an amazing card for its scrap value. Monsters have amazing legendaries, and we're going to start with Avalach, who is the best spy of the game. He gives you card advantage, which is crucial when playing monsters, especially weather, and he allows you to thin the deck and reach the cards you miss. A close second is Caretaker. He has a huge potential. At best, he is game winning, and at worst, he is average. It's a very, very reliable card. He is disruptive. You can steal bronze and silver cards, for example, like a Roach, Ogfist, Spies, Skirmishers, Priscilla, King of Beggars, Queen's Guards, and like the list goes on and on. It's an amazing card. It's a must-have if you want to play monsters. Just like Avalach, these 2 cards are pretty much the staple of the faction. And yeah, definitely craft him. Number 3 is Caier. He is a must-have in consumed decks, and he has huge synergy with any consumed cards because he eats 3 cards. So all the effects three times. For example, he's going to buff the Nickers 3 times. If you have an Arrakis Behemoth, he's going to spawn 3 Arrakas. So he's not a must-have if you're not going to play Consume. However, if you're going to play Consume, then he is one of the staples. He protects your value, and this is amazing. So we're going to end with Nilfgaard, and we're going to start about Nilfgaard with Morvran. I think Morvran is by far the best leader of the faction. He is very useful, very versatile. He thins the deck, and most importantly, he gives you a choice between 3 cards. So this is a lot of flexibility, and this is really great. And as you can see, he's going to have a lot of synergies with the cards we're going to talk about in a moment. Second is Caier. Caier allows you to replay your leader ability, and he is best used if your opponent ran out of units, but he is strong anyway. He has a very strong body and huge synergy with Morvran because being able to use Morvran's ability twice is really, really strong. Number 3 is Stefan Skellen. He has amazing synergy with Morvran again. The better your collection, the better this card becomes. However, it's still very solid. For example, you can use him to go fish for your gold cards. Like even a Geralt is useful. You can get him for 200 scraps, which is really good value early on. I think it's a very nice card to craft, and it's going to boost your decks a lot, especially in the beginning. So definitely consider to craft him. So next on the list is Cynthia. Cynthia is an amazing card in my opinion. She gives you a free draw pretty much because you give a close to useless card to your opponent, just 6 value, and then you get to draw a real card. So you thin your deck, but your opponent doesn't. It's going to help you. It can fit into all the Nilfgaard archetypes, so a pretty good card. Next up is Cantarella. Cantarella is the Nilfgaard spy. She's useful just like any spy to get card advantage, and she has synergies with Treason. And we're going to conclude this list with the Vilgefortz, which is a very, very flexible card. He has insane synergy with a lot of other cards like Roach, Stefan Skellen. He thins the deck, and he fits into almost all NG decks, which is really good. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. This one was a long video, but I really wanted to be thorough and explain all the choices. Please remember this is all based on my personal experience, and this is just my opinion. Don't craft anything blindly if you don't think that something is going to suit you, or if you think there's a better alternative, just go for it and follow and trust your guts pretty much. Just play whatever card makes you happy, even if it's just for an artwork, just because you like a character, because you like a sound effect, you think a card is cool, just go for it and have fun. That's what we play Gwent for. And yeah, before I go, I just wanted to apologize sincerely for the long time that has passed since I last posted a video. I've had a lot to go through recently, and yeah, now it's all behind me and I'm gonna be able to resume making videos, which is what makes me happy right now. So thank you so much for watching, thank you for staying with me, and I'll see you guys next time.